A quick thought now from Hogan Gidley, former White House principal deputy press secretary under President Trump. He was part of the press operation for the former president's first impeachment. Hogan, good to see you this afternoon. We are now in the middle of the unprecedented second impeachment of the president of the United States. Your thoughts as you look at how this case is being laid out today on the other side?
Well, the whole thing is just political. It's a power grab by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. What they're trying to do is basically permit, the evidence involved here to keep the president of the United States from ever running for office again. That's how scared they are of Donald Trump. But also, what they're basically doing here is trying to say that if you support President Trump and do not vote to impeach Donald Trump, then you do support the rioters at the Capitol. That is absolutely disingenuous. It's a dirty political trick, and it's dangerous for the future of our country. That is the wrong choice to lay before the American people when you consider we just disagree with Democrats fundamentally on policy. We, as Republicans, condemned those rioters that stormed the Capitol. We also condemned, consistently so, by the way, the rioters, the looters, the arsonists, those who targeted police all summer long. Okay. Democrats did not.
I hear what you're saying, and I think, just to that last point that you made, it was very interesting to watch David Cicilline, the representative from Rhode Island, talk about, how upset they were about what happened to these Capitol Hill police officers, and every American was horrified by what happened to these Capitol Hill police officers that day. But then my mind goes back to these young, I remember seeing young women in the streets shouting racist in the face of police officers across this country, which was also deeply disturbing to anybody who supports our law enforcement across the country. And when I look back at that moment, we did not see the same kind of outrage. Now, some people call that, whataboutism, right? But I do think that as a nation, we need to understand that violence is violence, that mistreating police officers or other people in any environment is something that none of us can stand for. But, just going back to, you say that, we all condemn the rioters, we all condemn what they did. The president didn't condemn them that day. And when he did come before the cameras, I think that many people thought that that was what they were going to hear. But he said, we love you, remember this day, things that did not line up with, I think, what a lot of the country was feeling. And that's something that sticks. That still sticks.
Well, look, I think three main points here that the Democrats are trying to make. One is Jamie Raskin started this whole thing off by saying, I'm going to tell you the truth. And then he used a Hollywood-produced video and cut out the very words that Donald Trump used that day when he said, go to the Capitol peacefully and patriotically. That's number one. Then
that was a mistake on their part. I think they should have said, we know that that's going to be the rebut, and he did say that, but here are all the other things that he said that make their argument. So I think that was a mistake. Yeah, but I do want to press you on what I just asked you, which is that the president could have perhaps separated himself. Not perhaps. He could have definitely separated himself that day, but he chose not to.
But he did, in real time. He said for them to go home peacefully. He said not to attack the brave men and women of law enforcement. He did so afterwards.
He said he wanted Mike Pence to stand up and do the right thing, and we love you, and we want you to remember this day after the images that we saw. I mean, you can't. That's what it is. That's what happened. You can defend it, but that's what he said.
But again, Jamie Raskin made the point, the mere conversation Donald Trump is having with the American people, that he objected to the outcome of the election, is somehow incitement. Well, guess who was the first one in Congress in 2017 objecting to the seating of the electors for Donald Trump? It was Jamie Raskin. I mean, the hypocrisy knows no bounds. And then on top of all of that, they say the rhetoric is what caused this, especially the phrase fight like hell. Well, it was Jamie Raskin who tweeted the very same phrase, fight like hell.
We've said that up and down. Both sides use that kind of political rhetoric. There's no doubt about it.
So spare me the sanctimony. I say this all the time, Martha. Democrats always accuse Republicans of things they themselves are actually guilty of doing. Democrats are going to face a world of hurt tomorrow when the president's team gets to defend him, because they're going to see their own words come back to bite them hardcore. We will absolutely get to hear the other side. And I also just want to point out before we go back here,
something that you said at the beginning, which I think is very true. And I think that there's an effort to broad sweep every person across America who supported the president or who liked the policies that he stood for and put them all in the category of people who were, using Trump flags and polls to jab Capitol Hill police officers. And separating yourself from that violence is so important. And that's why I also brought up the question about the president's statement that day. So
it's disgusting, it's disingenuous, and it's dangerous. And the Democrats do it repeatedly. And for the large part, the media let them get away with it. And we're not going to let them get away with it anymore.
Yeah, well, there was a lot of disgusting behavior that happened on January the 6th. And we're going to keep covering this. And as you say, we will hear the other side. And that will get underway shortly. And we look forward to do that because that's the way we do things in the United States of America. We're going to hear both sides of this argument. Hogan Gidley, thank you. Good to see you.